Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be using the Scrappin' for Less July 2018 Flavor of the Month card kit to create 4 cards. There is a sketch sheet you can download from their website to get some inspiration and follow along. I'm going to start with card 1 and I'm using sketch 1, and for that I'm using collection 2. I'm taking the pretty confetti paper and I'm taking a scalloped rectangle die, and I've used that to cut that out. And then for the frame I used the pretty pink Posh Storybook number 2 die to cut my frame out from the cardstock in the kit. Now the pretty pink Posh die does not cut the outside edge, so I've used my paper trimmer just to cut around the frame. Then I'm taking some 3M foam tape and I'm going to pop that frame up. And then I cut some really thin strips and I add those to the insides of the frame. Once I have that done, I can start layering my pieces. I'm taking a white card base and I'm adhering the confetti paper. And that paper is cut slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card. And then I'm taking my frame and I peel the backing off of that foam tape, and then I can press that right down into place. Then I'm using the sentiment from the Scrappin' for Less stamp set, and it just reads Happy Birthday. I'm using VersaFine ink to stamp that so it's nice and crisp and it stands out against that confetti background. And then I can start layering my elements. The Ephemera piece, the Celebrate, is from the collection, and the stamp that I used is Sunny Studios, and it's the little birthday cake, which I've colored off screen just to save a little time. I pop that piece up on some foam tape so it lays flush against the frame, and that completes the first card. Now I add some Winkum Stella. Now that completes this card. For the second card, I will be using sketch number 2, and I will be using collection number 3 from the kit. I'm starting with the pattern paper, and I have this is an MFT Fishtail die that I have, and I'm using that to die cut the yellow and the pink paper. And then I used a Lawn Fawn die to die cut the background pattern paper. I go ahead and adhere that to my card base. And then I have to trim it down because I didn't exactly measure it correctly. And then the pink and the yellow pattern paper, I can go ahead and adhere that to the left side of the card. Now for my focal point elements, I decided to use the ephemera pieces from the kit, and I picked out the sentiment, and I also picked out the little pineapple. The sentiment, I'm inking the sides of it, the edges of it, using vintage photo just to make it pop a little bit against that background so that it doesn't exactly blend in to the card. And then I'll take the ephemera piece, the sentiment ephemera piece, and I added some foam squares to that. I adhere that to the center of the card base, and then I can take my little character and pop her up onto some foam tape and add that to my card. And that is a completed card. Oh, I decide to add a few little sequins from the kit to the bottom left-hand corner. I use the pick-me-up tool to pick up my sequins, and I use some multimedia matte to adhere them down. And I seem to have the worst luck when it comes to adhesives. I don't know if it's just me or if everybody seems to have this problem. Moving on to card number 3. For the third card, I'm using the sketch number 3, and I will be using collection number 4. I'm starting out with the sage pattern paper, and I trimmed that down just a bit. I'm using the Fawn stitched rectangle die to cut that out, and I've used the Lacy borders from Fawn to cut out a piece of black cardstock, and then the little strip of pattern paper, I can adhere that along the side of the Lacy borders. And then I figure out where I want to cut that down to, and I use the Fawn die to cut that part of it down. I've also die cut a piece of vellum using a stitch circle die, and I think that's called jelly bean green cardstock from the kit. I've used a stitched square die to cut that out. So now that I have all of my components ready, I'm ready to start layering up my pieces. I take the largest pattern paper and I adhere that flat to the card base. Then I can take the little fancy or lacy border, rather, with the striped paper strip and add that. And funny story, I thought this image was a bus. It looks like a bus to me. I see headlights, I see the grill. I wasn't exactly sure how to explain those lines across the windshield, but I thought it was a bus until I read the sentiments and I realized it's probably a radio. So anyway, I'm still layering up those pieces, and I took some black cardstock and I die cut that using a banner die, and then I've added 2 of those according to the sketch. And then the jelly bean cardstock, I pop that up on some foam tape and I adhere that to the card base. And then the vellum piece, I add my radio, not a bus, but a radio, to that, and I should have just slid it up just slightly higher than where I've placed it, but whatever. And then I use just a little piece of foam tape so that it's sitting flush with the green cardstock. And in the sketch there is a small banner that's sitting in that left corner, so I add that, and then this is where I realize, oh, it's not a bus, it's a radio. So the sentiment I use, which is fitting for the radio, is "You rock." And I stamp that down using VersaFine ink. And that will complete that card. Now for my fourth and final card, I'm following sketch 4 and I'm using collection 1. And this is my favorite card, and I don't know, I think it's because of the little foxes. They're just happen to be my favorite little critters. So anyhow, I took a rectangle die and I cut a square out of it, and I'm not hoarding this time. I actually need that piece for my card. I die cut a piece of the navy cardstock. It's just for my stash. And then I'm taking the birthday paper and I can adhere that to my card base. Missed that one again. Anyhow, then I can layer the navy piece of cardstock as a mat, and then the light blue pattern paper I can add on top of that once I can get that piece on straight. See, no luck with adhesives. And then I can layer the pattern paper down, and I've colored my little fox off screen. I've either die cut my images using my scan and cut, or I've fussy cut them out, which I absolutely hate. And then the sentiment that I'm using is a piece of an ephemera from the collection, and it reads, "It's party time." And then I pop up the image onto some foam tape and add that to my card. Once I have those adhered, I can remove the backing and place him in the center of my card. And then for the final little piece, I use a Celebrate banner, which is from the kit. And I can attach that to the bottom right corner. And that completes that card. I hope you liked these and found them inspiring. I really want to thank you guys for watching, commenting, and liking my videos. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll have a blog post linked down below with all the supplies I used to create these cards. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.